Thank, oh, Thank you, Laura. My name is Stephanie Staller. I'm a Senior Associate Director of Admission at McDaniel College in Westminster, Maryland. And I want to give you a little backstory of information about CTCL as well as the colleges that change lives, and then we're going to talk about different topics. Colleges that change lives was actually the byproduct of a former New York Times editor of the education section, as well as an independent educational consultant from Northern Virginia named Lauren Pope. Back in a kind of retired career, he decided to become an educational consultant. And the number of clients that he worked with, he started discovering when he was assisting his clients and writing articles for the Times that there were a lot of fantastic colleges out there that just didn't have that bumper sticker recognition. And yet they were competing for top jobs and graduate schools all across this country. And a number of people just kept saying to him, you really, should write a book. And so his first book was called Looking Beyond the Ivy League. And the intention of the Looking Beyond the Ivy League was basically to just give people, students, and their families a way to approach the college search, that it shouldn't be about the name recognition or the perceived prestige that comes with that name recognition, but it really should be about what the experience the students are having on those physical campuses. So the first edition of Colleges That Change Lives was published in 1996, and it went on to have 3 subsequent editions. And then the third edition happened in 2006. And at that time, the colleges, there were 40 colleges that he selected from around the United States that were part of the Colleges That Change Lives. And we came together and decided to form a nonprofit because we really wanted to have a student-centered college search mission. And so we came together as a nonprofit. Keep in mind, Lauren Pope at this point is about 92 years old in 2006. So we were also kind of thinking of his legacy because he was 92. So he was not going to be with us for much longer. 2008, he passed on. And his family, the Lauren Pope family, decided that they wanted to actually carry on his legacy. So they hired an author to carry on his mission. And so what she did is she actually went around to all the colleges that were in the current Colleges That Change Lives book, and she wanted to see if they were living up to their mission, and then actually incorporated some new colleges into that. So as it currently stands, as of 2019, there are 45 colleges in the CTCL nonprofit organization that are part of this. We tour around, we do about 26 national college fairs every year, all around the United States. We travel as a group. And our mission is not our exclusive 45 colleges. Our mission is really how to get through this college search process the right way, and the right way being that it's addressing what the individual students want and need to find a successful learning environment, and that as you search for colleges, that you really be focused in on the college experience of not just the in-classroom learning, but the relationship building, the navigation of life, because that is what is very paramount to all of our campuses that are part of CTCL, is that college should not just be about what happens in the classroom, but really what transcends the classroom and is part of that residential college environment. So as you're searching for colleges, this should not be your end-all be-all existence. We'll be the first to say you should enjoy your senior year by the time you get to your senior year, and you shouldn't be completely monopolizing the college search, because there's 4,000 colleges in the country. Everyone can absolutely find a place to call home. There is a little secret that's not really a secret, but I know for people going through the process for the first time, most colleges nationwide accept more than they deny students in their applicant pool. But it doesn't make for good headlines. It makes for good headlines to make it seem like nobody's going to get anywhere. And if you don't have these top 10 schools or such on your list, that in fact will mean you're not going to have a great college experience, when that is absolutely not the fact. Going through this process should really be about who's the student, where are they going to be successful, what kind of experience is that college going to provide for them. Our colleges really provide the atmosphere of being student-centered. So while some of us may have graduate programs, our true focus is the undergraduate learning experience and wanting students to be able to access all the resources that each of our institutions provides. And that should be a question you're asking as you're visiting campuses. You really need to start finding out about the individual personalities of college, because in a 21st century job market, it's not always about what that actual degree is in or where that degree is from, but it's the extra experiences that students will go through while they're in college that is really going to be a distinguishing feature of whether they get into the graduate positions they want to go towards or the jobs they want to go into. Because marketability is a huge component of the current job market as technology and automation start to make dramatic shifts in industries across the spectrum. Anyone want to hazard how many career changes college graduates nationwide are facing? Careers, not jobs. Anyone want to hazard a guess? A little lower.
5.
7. 7 career changes. The idea of going to college and saying, I want to do this and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life is getting harder and harder to say with some level of certainty because the data does not support it, and we need to find ways to ensure that when you're thinking about college, college is not a finishing school. College is an opportunity to open yourself up to new possibilities and to go beyond just the very traditional, I think, default answers that when you ask a lot of students, what do you want to do? They default to the same 3 or 4 different majors, but they don't always know what those mean. And a true college experience should involve exploration and real discussion and collaboration with faculty members to really get at the heart of what majors play to your passions, your interests, and your strengths, and what careers are associated with those respective majors. And that's what we really believe strongly in, that people need to, when they're searching for a college, really ask more detailed questions about what kind of experience, what kind of valued experience will my student have, or will I as the student have if I go to this college. And if you approach it in that way, your likelihood is you're going to wind up with easily a list of 8 to 10 colleges that you feel any one of them could be a really great fit for you. I personally do not believe in the soulmate approach to college searching, that there is not one school out there for one person. I think that there's a lot of great opportunities that are available, but it does also take making a conscious effort to say, I may not know of that college, but let me talk. Let me ask some questions and let me see if maybe that's a school I should really give some greater consideration to. So that's just a little bit of background about kind of what the CTCL mission is. And again, it's not to say our respective schools alone. There are many, many schools that could fit that bill, but that you go through the process asking more detailed questions than do they have this major and do I recognize that name, but really getting at more what experience will I have for 4 years when I'm a member of that campus community.
All right. Hi there, everyone. My name is Drew Goodwin. I am an admissions counselor at St. John's College. We are located in both Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Annapolis, Maryland. So I have been tasked this evening with discussing the question, what is the liberal arts? I think this is a term that in higher ed we throw around a lot, but we don't actually like to define, because in a sense it is a little bit icky, sticky, timey-wimey, and wobbly, right? But one of the definitive hallmarks of a liberal arts education is going to be what's called interdisciplinary focus, at least as a core curriculum. So by interdisciplinary, I mean not just studying biology or not just studying psychology. And this is truly a hallmark of American education, and partly what makes American education so great. A lot of other countries don't have this model. If you go to Mexico, biology students will take biology and nothing but biology all 4 years. If you're a biology student in an art class, that's really weird, right? Very strange. So that's going to be a big part of it. Now, schools go about doing this in different ways. Some schools will have distribution requirements. Some schools will have a prescribed, coursework that you must do in a certain sequence, right? It really depends on the exact same school. But the liberal arts are also going to focus a little bit more on, less so on these quote unquote objective measures of knowledge testing. So the liberal arts is a little bit more about, please demonstrate your knowledge by talking about it. Please demonstrate your knowledge by writing a paper about it. To really focus on some of those oral presentation skills and a lot of those critical thinking skills that you don't get from reading a textbook and regurgitating it back onto a multiple choice test. It challenges you to think a little bit more deeply about the things around you, right? So the value in this education ties into a lot about what we've already been talking about so far, is that, a lot of what you're going to be doing in your life might not be what your major is in. So how do you actually prepare yourself for those average 7 different careers, right? just studying biology or just studying, entrepreneurship probably won't do that for you. But having a more comprehensive liberal arts education in which you feel very confident that you can look at a problem, think about it, solve the problem, be a little bit more creative, be a little bit more of a dynamic thinker, to get up in front of an audience of 300 people maybe and talk about what is the liberal arts kind of extemporaneously. Those are the skills that not only are going to allow you to seamlessly transition from career to career, but also that's going to make you more attractive to employers, right? Employers don't want, someone who can spout facts about the law necessarily all the time, right? Because, Google can do that. Google can do so much for us, maybe a little bit too much sometimes, right? But what Google can't do is replicate that truly human experience of being able to, look at something, think about it, analyze it, and come up with a truly creative and innovative solution, right? So that really is, what the liberal arts tries to do, and what I think that really is something that we're moving away towards in higher education, but something to think about. That how is this degree, how is this curriculum going to prepare you for not just that career you get right out of college, right? A lot of people or a lot of colleges like to talk about, oh, we have a 96% 6-year or 6-month graduate school and job placement rate. That's great. That's awesome. But what does that look like in 20 and 30 years when maybe you don't like that first job you had, or maybe that first job you had no longer is viable, right? You can think that, oh, it's computer science, or oh, it's a STEM field, it's going to be around forever. But that's what coal miners in West Virginia think, or thought, rather. That, coal's what my daddy did, it's what my granddaddy did, right? So I'll do it my entire life, and that's what that's going to be. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in anymore. So the liberal arts are going to be a really, really key factor in being able to make those seamless transitions as you move towards your future, more broadly speaking. All right. Thank y'all so much.
Awesome. So, hi, y'all. My name is Dan Becker. I am with Ursinus College. I have the pleasure of speaking to y'all tonight about FIT and what it is, what that means, kind of like the liberal arts. That's also a term we might like to throw around, but we might not always define. So one of the questions I get asked quite frequently, and I will say for any of my colleagues and peers on this panel that are graduates of their institution, we get asked quite a lot is, well, why did you go to that school? What made you pick Ursinus? As a student, I actually grew up in the Northern Virginia area. I went to a large public. I graduated from Lake Braddock Secondary, so pretty familiar with McLean. We never liked racing y'all in crew. Y'all always did so well, so happy to be here again, keeping it professional. So at Lake Braddock, I had many of my peers. I would always ask, well, where are you looking at school? Where are you going? UVA, Virginia Tech, CNU, JMU, GMU, all the MUs, anything in-state. And they're like, well, where are you looking? Ursinus. What's an Ursinus? So that's kind of the question I want to answer tonight is why did I go to Ursinus? And more generally, why does anyone go where they go? And I think it comes down to what we call fit. So when we think about the college process, a lot of times, mom and dad especially, not to throw shade, we like to make it very informative. We like to have a lot of numbers. We like to have data, things that are very objective and easy to work with. I speak from personal experience. My dad's an engineer. So whenever we looked at colleges, he'd say, all right, how much did you like this? We'll make everything a number point. You can weight each number slightly differently. And at the end, we'll have a total number, and the highest number is the school you like the most. Dude. You just objectified love. Like, oh my God. If that's not an engineer move, I don't know what is. So we like to have a lot of numbers. And don't get me wrong, numbers are really important. Information is really important at first. As we mentioned, there are about 4,000 colleges out there, although it can feel like a lot more. It can almost feel like an infinite pool. So how do we get down to that list of 8 to 10? Numbers, data, that information up front. We're gonna look, okay, maybe I want a smaller school, or maybe I do want a larger school. I want these particular majors at first. Maybe I'm looking to do athletics. Once we have that information, we can start to go through and do our research. Hop on things like the Princeton Review. Coming from Fairfax, I don't know if y'all still have it, but Blackboard, FCPS, Family Connection, Naviance. These are all great resources to learn about a lot of schools that have really, really accurate kind of college search programs that you can run. that will find schools that match your criteria. But then we have 8 to 10 schools where the differences between those numbers are marginal. There's really no significant difference. If there were, you wouldn't be looking at those schools. If we're only looking at, say, a school like Ursinus, where we have only 1,500 undergrads, we're not looking at Texas A&M, where they have almost 60,000 students, unless, of course, you want to keep your options really open. So we have a marginal difference in numbers. Where are we going to get this list from 8 to 10 down to 1, where we're going to end up going? The difference is fit, how you feel on campus. A lot of times we don't like that idea. How you feel, that's so wishy-washy. That's so much up to your subjective interpretation. Use numbers. They're a lot better for you. Well, let's run 2 thoughts first. Firstly, let's think, my degree will be so important. It's going to be so great. It was super competitive. That seems like a really weak mantra for 4 years where you don't enjoy your experience on that campus. Saying my job is going to be X% more competitive than my peers because I went to this institution. That really doesn't seem like a mantra that's going to carry you through 4 years of you not liking your college experience. Now let's think about another one. This is kind of audience participation, so shout out if you do know. Where did your dentist or your doctor do their undergrad? Does anyone know? Does anyone know where their dentist did their undergrad? No. You don't, because you've probably never asked because their hands are in your mouth and you can't really talk. But if you could, you probably wouldn't even think to ask because it's not that important really. That name recognition is not what it's cracked up to be as what some of these schools might like you to believe or what some of these publications might want you to believe. What really matters is how you feel there. So one of the best ways to interpret fit is to visit. Visit a campus. Once we have that 8 to 10, plan out the road trip. Mom and dad, crack out that Google Maps. Mark it out. Be like, okay, we can hit this school on this way to this school on this way. Side note as well, you can miss at least one AP class, just one. If it's for a good reason, go and visit that school. I missed 1 or 2, and I don't know if anyone else here missed an AP class back in the day, but we all survived. You will get through. So now that we have our time on campus, there are a few questions we really should ask ourselves to help determine fit. First off is the big one. Do I see myself living here for the next 4 years and liking it? I know I toured a school. I was being very heavily recruited there for swimming. I swam in school for 4 years. I was being heavily recruited there, but I didn't like the feel of the campus. The school was 52% Greek, and I was not really all that preppy. My mom was looking around. She's like, it's like walking through a Vineyard Vines catalog. Watch out. So kind of ruled it out through fit. Had I just gone on numbers, the financial aid package was a little bit nicer. The area, I liked it a little bit more. It was down in the South. I was being more heavily recruited. On paper, this school made more sense. Through information alone, this school made more sense. But it didn't make sense when I was there. So you're going to be there for 4 years. We got to figure out if it's going to make sense when we're there. So visit that school. Once we're there, start asking other questions of, do they have that major? Do they have, or what is that sports team like? What are the clubs like? Can I see myself being a part of these organizations? But also ask, what are all the other organizations like that I'm not going to be a part of? Maybe Greek life isn't your move. Maybe you're not an athlete. Maybe you're not in the business program. If I'm not in one of those programs, will my social life suffer? Will I feel like I'm missing out at the end of these 4 years? If the answer is yes, that's not the best fit. So ask, what is it going to be like to be involved here? And what is it even going to be like to not be involved in certain ways here? That's how we can start to determine fit. The next best way to determine fit is really to talk to us. Like it was said, we are not that scary. At least I hope I'm not that scary. So you can always email us, generally speaking. You can always call us and say, hey, what's this like on your campus? I want to know a little bit more. I did come for a tour, but the tour didn't go through this part of the campus, which I'm incidentally interested in. Or I had some questions I just thought of after I left. You can always contact us, and we will do our best to answer those questions, or we will put you in contact with a current student or alumni who can answer those questions as well to help you determine, does this fit for me? The way I always like to kind of sum this up, to put a little bit neater term on the word fit, is insight. You need to have that insight. Information is good. It just tells you facts. But information is only good for that. It's just good for memorizing those facts. Insight lets me know how I'm supposed to use those facts in a certain method. And the method we are trying to use those facts is to determine whether or not I feel good on this campus and whether or not I will enjoy my next 4 years here. Because these are going to be some of the best 4 years of your life. I know everyone says it. You're going to get tired of hearing that freshman by the end of these 4 years. The next 4 years will be great. I know, I've been told 5 times today. So enjoy this process. Come for those visits. Keep in contact with your admissions staff, and above all, just enjoy the process. It's going to be a fun ride. So that's it for me.
My name is Carrie, and I represent liberal arts, a Christian liberal arts college in Holland, Michigan. And I am tasked tonight with telling you how to lead a stressless college search, which should end in a roar of laughter, right? So the key points I've thought of kind of build on what my colleagues have already said. But I'm going to start with a perspective I had when my 3 children were headed off to college, and what I as a parent really wanted for them. First, I wanted great academics because I wanted them to get a job when they graduated or get into that graduate school that they really wanted. I also wanted them to have friends, to feel comfortable, to have a good time, and to be safe. It's pretty simple. But it really wasn't my college search. It was their college search. So we kind of sat down and said, what are you looking for? And not any one of my 3 kids knew exactly what they were looking for. They were kind of a deer in headlights. So on my journey in this job, and I've been doing this for a while, I tried to think of students I've worked with that seemed a little bit more calm. I'd like to start with what not to do, and I'd like to end with what I've seen those students do that are very calm during the search. Some of the things I'm going to tell you about what not to do are, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm going to be very honest. Parents, do not compete with your best friends on getting your child into the best school that is up there in your mind. Students, do not pick the school or apply to the schools only because your best friend, or, I'm going to say it, your boyfriend or girlfriend is going to that school. And honestly, the only reason I say these things are when we look at why students transfer, that's one of the number one things. They followed what they thought would be a cool place that everybody would go, oh, you got into, and then they got there and it was too stressful or they didn't fit in, is what Dan was talking about. They broke up with their girlfriend or boyfriend, and all of a sudden they had no friends because they went with a group of friends and everybody found new friends. So those are the 4 things I would say don't do. But here's what I would say do. And a lot of this plays on a little bit what Dan talked about. The first thing, and I know this is old school, but I guarantee you it works every time. Take a quiet place, students, and write down the things you love about high school. Do you have a favorite teacher that you really like you've learned a lot from? And he or she just, like when you go in that classroom, it gets you excited. Why? Write that down. Write down what kind of student you are. Do you like to talk in the classroom? Or are you a kind of student that kind of wants to be a fly on the wall, just take a lot of notes and go home and kind of rework those? There is not a right or a wrong to that, but those are 2 different learning styles. Write down what makes you happy in a community. Are you a big group person? Do you have a couple of really good friends? Write down what environment. When you have vacationed and you've gone to the beach, do you feel your whole body relax? Or are you a big city person? You really like the tall skyscrapers, a lot of action. The things that I'm pointing out are the things to write down Every college, all 4,000 of us, are located all over the United States in these different areas. And we all offer smaller classrooms on this stage and in the College That Changed Lives book, but we all know large universities. And again, there's not a right or wrong to it, but if you take some time before you ever do a college search and figure out what would kind of make you happy in the environment, then start your search. The next thing that these students do, who are all calm, start with academics. They kind of figure out, I either like this type of course, I love English, oh my gosh, I love math. Or there's some students who say, I think I want to be a veterinarian. You know, I love math. I think engineering, I want to kind of pursue that. So when you start looking at schools, you look at the academics and see what they offer. Then you go to your list and you say, well, you know what? I really like the small classroom. Mr. Brown was my teacher, and he was hilarious, and I could ask him anything. You might be a student that would really thrive in a smaller environment. You go to your list and you say, you know what? I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere, but I want to be able to afford some things outside of campus. So I kind of want to be near a town, a city that I can utilize. Okay? So you start looking at that in your college search. See, what you're doing is you're starting to visualize where you want to go and where you'll thrive. Once you kind of do that, and one search engine I'll add to this that I recommend a lot is CapEx. If you go on CapEx, you can kind of say, I want the things I've talked about and plug them in, and they bring up a whole bunch of different schools. And then I will reiterate what Dan said, visit. And I know it's a lot of time, but it will take the stress out. There's some students in the last 2 years that are going to websites, a lot of students, and they'll just go on and do what we call virtual tours. That's not going to give you the feel that my friends at this table talked about. It's going to show you kind of the buildings and if they have trees and things like that, but you're not going to be able to get a feel. So I really recommend visiting. I'm in Michigan. You can, if you're a senior, we will help you get there by air, and we will help pay your expenses. I'm sure all my friends on this table will help with that if you're looking at a school that's not drivable. So do visit. And my fourth thing is pay attention to deadlines because they matter. Deadlines really matter, and it gets confusing. It really can get very confusing. But if you pay attention to the deadlines of the applications and the financial aid and the scholarships to the schools you're interested in, it can really take the stress off. And my last thing that I found students who really have a very stressless time of finding their school is they don't put a deadline on when they're going to make a decision of Christmas. And more students are saying, I have to know where I'm going. That's what everybody's asking me. Where are you going to go to college? What are you going to study? I have to know where I'm going. Right now, as of this year, the national deadline is May 1st. As most of us on this table, yeah, May 1st. Do yourself a favor and give yourself some time. Now, if you find that you have found your perfect school, that's fine. That's good. But don't do it because you feel the pressure. Allow yourself to have the time and make the decision that's best for you. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Wells, and I am at Wabash College, which is in West Central Indiana. And I am wanting to talk to you about and share some information about student-centered resources. So how to find yourself in the options that you have before you and the many schools that we've said today. So I would like to say that the student-centered resources are really focused on what your needs are and what your interests are. And my overarching message to you would be, let us get to know you. It is really helpful for us because you are all individuals. You all have your unique needs, your unique interests, your unique personalities. Let us know who you are and how we might be able to help you better understand what our college can do for you. So for needs, for example, do not be shy to tell us if you need an accommodation. So for example, at your school here, if you need extra time or you need equipment in your labs or whatever it might be, let us know that so we can also connect you to our accommodation specialists on our campus to let you know what our campuses can do for you. Or if you have a dietary restriction or you need a certain housing accommodation, let us be a part of those conversations so you can see the fit in that. Ask about what orientation looks like, what the freshman transition classes look like. A lot of our small schools offer some sort of freshman tutorial class where we teach you how to be good college students. So ask us what that is like, and we can tell you what we do to help you with that transition. The small schools that we represent today are flexible and nimble, and professors really get to know you. Staff really wants to understand how they can best serve you. So let us be a part of those conversations early. So that would be on the needs side of things. What's important to you? What do you need to be successful in college and in the classroom? And then on the interests side of things, let us know what's important to you. Do you play a sport? Do you want to participate in athletics or intramurals? What sort of clubs do you participate in high school or in your community? Do you do leadership, or have you strived to be a leader in your community and you want to continue to do that in college? Or what sort of internships or jobs have you had or you're interested in? And we all really enjoy working with our career services on our campus and getting them connected to you all early. Let us know what sort of things you want to do, and we'll get you connected to career services so you see what sort of possibilities are available to you very early in your college career. Study abroad are things that we really are excited to talk to students about. Do you have an interest in going abroad or doing an immersion program, going overseas and working? Let us know that so we can help you identify the resources and support services that are available to us and you on our campuses. So I ask you that you tell us more about you so that we can share all of the many things that we're excited about at our schools. And we are student-centered, so all of our schools are going to be saying that, but let us show you the reasons of why we can specifically help you have a successful college career.
Assistant Director of Admissions at the University of Lynchburg right here in Virginia. If you have not yet been to our campus, I really hope you'll come soon and see what all the excitement is about, and come and see all of these schools. I hope that this has kind of helped open your eyes to some of the really exciting opportunities if you think just beyond the same schools that we tend to talk about again and again and again. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about outcomes, and I know that there's an important baseball game coming up, and there's been a lot of information to absorb, so I'll try to get to the point pretty quickly here. And I always start by asking, who wants a job when you graduate? Okay. Parents, who wants your student to have a job when you graduate? Okay. It's always interesting how many students don't raise their hand for that. But anyway, I think that there's a ton of time and energy and effort and certainly money that goes into this. So I understand that one of the top questions we get is my student going to get a job? Am I going to be able to do what I want to do? And I completely get that. And the answer is, of course, yes. We are here to help you get where you're trying to go. And there's 4 quick things that I want to mention a little bit about how we do that. And actually, the first thing is I want to circle back to where we began, and that is the liberal arts curriculum. I think sometimes people think that career development is something that we go through 4 years, we kind of do our thing, and then at the very end, oh, by the way, I'm going to stop by the Career Center, and they're just going to get me a job. And unfortunately, that's not really the way it works. And in our opinion, it starts the very first day you're on campus with those liberal arts courses. See, for us, those gen ed classes are not just a checklist. It's not just, oh, I need to do this, this, and this, and then I can get into our major. You know, the gen ed courses is giving you a diverse skill set that can apply to all those different jobs, the many different careers that you may not know you're going to pursue, jobs that may not yet exist. It's invaluable, the fact that from day one at this type of school, you're taught by a real professor, not a GA or a TA, somebody who could be, I don't know, 24 years old. Is that any of us? I don't know. just graduated last week and now you're teaching a class that you're paying a ton of money for. That's kind of a scary thought, in my opinion. You're taught by a real professor from day one, small class sizes from day one, and we're really, really proud of that. And the liberal arts includes sciences. Some of the most popular programs on our campus are the sciences and the health sciences. Sometimes people are like, oh, you're a small school, so I can't come to you if I ultimately want to go to med school. And in fact, many of us will send a lot of students to med school, and they're actually ahead of their peers because they took anatomy and physiology in a real cadaver lab. That's something that just doesn't always happen when you're one of 500 students. If this is Bio 101, let's just pretend this room right here is Bio 101. Do you have the courage to raise your hand and ask a question? If you do, that's awesome. I would, no way. No way, So the small environment really facilitates very active participation. So again, a meaningful liberal arts curriculum leads to a diverse skill set that can translate to so many different jobs and careers. And that kind of takes me to my next point, which is we're really big on high impact practices and the experiential learning process. I always tell students that if you want to just kind of blend in and be very passive with this process, we're not the right fit for you, because we really pull students out of their shell and say, hey, you're going to be a part of it. We say that involvement is an expectation, not an option. And I think when we plant that seed, that gets you used to the fact that you really got to dig in and, again, do whatever it is that you do. And that's what employers are going to want to see. You're going to be able to say, hey, I didn't just passively go through 4 years and then just decide I want a job one day, but I've actually really been digging into my research. Maybe you're collaborating with a faculty member, and we're undergrad focused. So yes, our professors publish, they research, they do all that good stuff, but they're there to teach first and foremost. And it's not unusual to see faculty members doing research that an undergrad has an interest in. And let that sink in for a second. This is a PhD, an expert in their field, and they're doing research that you as an undergrad want to do. That's absolutely huge, but we see that happening again and again and again. So again, students collaborate with faculty on research. Writing a thesis is often required. We really suggest this. We do a lot with the internship program. I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. We're really big on study abroad, and again, involvement in general. I think that when you're developing that resume over 4 years, that's just going to give you so much more substance to bring to the table when, again, it's time to go on to that job or grad school. The third thing I want to mention is that people know who you are. And I know that sounds really basic, but from day one, you're a person, you're not a number. Your advisor says, hey, you came in with this incredible passion to become a nurse, and maybe that's what you do, or maybe at some point in this process, you say, hey, the more I think about it, I don't like science, I don't like blood, and I really don't like people. Okay? It happens. Nursing's probably not going to be the right fit for you. So let's talk about maybe what the right track is. So again, maybe you come in knowing exactly what you want to do, and we're going to keep that on track. Maybe you come in not really sure, and that's all right as well. Or maybe you come in thinking you know what you want to do, and then we realize not quite the right fit. So people know who you are. Advising helps with that. And then when we get to the back end of this process, and it's time for that internship, or it's time for the job, you have faculty members who have known you for 4 years, and they're not just writing a recommendation based on a few things that they hope is true, but they actually know who you are. They can say, this person was born to do this, and I know that because I've known you as a person for many years. Don't underestimate the value of that. It's incredibly valuable. And last but not least, I want to talk just a little bit about our Pro Plus program. And this is something that we have, but again, many schools have something very similar to it. But we want to start thinking about what that next step is going to be really as soon as we know what the major is going to be. For us, that's during the second year. We're going to go ahead and say, all right, or do you want to be a biology major after all? Or maybe you come in undecided and we're going to say, have you figured that out yet? And normally that happens in the second year. So once you do solidify what that major is going to be, we just want to start to brainstorm what could that next step look like? Where could we maybe do an internship? How could we begin to connect you with alumni? I'll give you an example. This past weekend was homecoming. Over 500 students and alumni got together and did a variety of different networking type sessions where if you're interested in business, we had a group of business alumni come back and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I did this and it worked. I did this and it didn't work. Hey, do this, do that, whatever it may be. We get you connected with our alumni, and often that will lead to, hey, we're looking for some interns this summer. How about you come spend a summer in New York or wherever it may be? We have alumni all over the place, and they want to connect with you because, again, going back to what this experience looks like, they know that how much we are into the connections, and they understand the value of that. And those people had helped them in the past, so then they want to bring this full circle and help you. So we're really big on those sorts of things. We do mock interviews, cover letter writing, resume writing. I mean, we do an etiquette dinner. Any of the little things that the job market may throw at you, we have you prepared for. But that really just begins with saying, how do we begin to kind of bridge that gap between my major to my career? Maybe I know what that dream job is, but what's that first job going to look like? We're there to help with all that. And again, we just kind of take it one step at a time. And we have a fantastic program that's there to help you get where you're trying to go. Because really, at the end of the day, this is a process that goes over the 4 years. So we're there to help get you where you want to go. Because again, we're undergrad focused. And our passion is truly helping you get where you're going to go, because we want to see you do incredible things. And we're there to help with that. Thank you.
I love this first question. Are the way colleges are portrayed in movies true?
Let's try this one. Okay. So are colleges portrayed in movies the way they really exist? Short answer is no. Main reason is because it's movies. So the best example I can or analogy I can draw to this was I actually just flew in from LA last night. I was doing some college fairs out there. And when I told some of my friends that I was going out to LA, they were like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. It's going to be like Hollywood. It's going to be like the movies. No, there's bumper to bumper traffic at 3 a.m. It doesn't stop. It's actually kind of gross sometimes. But the thing is, it's a movie. It's a glamorized version. It's an exaggerated version of reality. So don't ever look to a movie to be a clear indicator of how things really are. Again, I think this kind of ties back into the idea of fit. Most of the schools I know on this panel here, most of the schools just in general, we will do overnight visits for some students. We will also do orientation events. So come on to our campus for those events, spend the night, get an idea of what it's like to really be on our campus, because it isn't gonna just be like the movies. Every campus is gonna be unique in its own way, and again, it's not gonna be like the movies.
Is high school just like High School Musical? Is it living up to everything you hoped?
I wish.
Can you explain majors and minors? What does it mean, and how does it work for students who may not know?
So I wanted to answer this question because our students don't actually have majors. So majors essentially is a specialization, right? It's something you will focus on kind of more in depth than anything else. So as we talked about, the liberal arts will, broadly focus on a lot of different subjects, but a major is really where you delve in deeper to one specifically, right? And it's this idea that when you know something more specific, you obviously understand it better, right? But I will say that a major is not necessarily everything it's cracked up to be, right? There's a lot of people out there who are doing things that are not in their major. Want to guess what my degree's in? International studies, right? So I'm not doing something necessarily that's quote unquote in my major. So, just because everyone says, oh, this STEM degree is going to get you a job necessarily, that's not always true. A lot of times it's really, you doing those extra things, those outcome-based things that we've been talking about, and not just focusing too much on that, because you don't want to major in biology because someone said it was a good idea. You want to do it because you actually like biology, right? So I'm going to definitely go for it.
I think one of the misnomers that we probably all get up on this table is, any of you students interested in the pre-medical track? Anybody pre-med students? Nobody? Wow. Okay.
That's not true.
Okay. If you know a friend that is. A lot of time we will talk to students and they said, yeah, I really want to be a doctor, but I love creative writing. And what you'll find in that type of role is you can actually major in creative writing. And then all of us have the core classes that you have to take that will prepare you for the MCAT exam. So that goes along with what Drew is saying, where it's an example of you don't have to major in a specific area to go on to medical school. That is the same with law school. You do not have to major in political science to go to law school. You can major in something that you really enjoy, and in those times when you're enjoying it, you become a strategic thinker. You are taught how to think outside of the box. You're taught to be creative. You're usually getting along with people. It's all the facets that will get you to the next step. The only couple ones that I can think of are nursing, education, engineering. Anything else I'm missing? Architecture. Well, not to be rude. At Hope College, we don't have architecture, but we have an art museum. And the gentleman who is the architect for the art museum actually was a Hope College undergrad and studied computer science and engineering and went on to get his architecture degree at Harvard. And now he lives in the Netherlands and has his own firm there. So sometimes you can go on some different paths, and sometimes you can't.
Thank you so much. Can we speak a bit on freshman retention? First of all, what does that mean? And how does happiness play a factor in that?
So freshman retention, though actually nationally it seems to now be a sophomore retention thing, depending on the level of transitional orientation type of experiences with a lot of colleges, that really is focusing heavily on the first year experience to prevent students from not returning for their sophomore year. But national trends are now starting to show that students are returning for their second year, but now they're not returning for their junior year, which is really strange. And again, with transferring, it's not good credit-wise. It's definitely going to increase their amount of time in college. But really, I mean, and again, at a small school, usually for us, a percentage point is 4 students. So with colleges, freshman retention is definitely something you want to talk about when you're visiting schools. Anything probably under 70% or whatever, if you ask them what their retention rate is, that's a question then you want to have a follow-up with to ask, well, if students are leaving here, why are they giving reason? What are the reasons they're giving for leaving this institution? We actually do it, and probably we all do. It's almost like an HR exit interview. If a student departs our campuses, our academic life folks will actually would call that student in to say, what is going on? What can we possibly do to help? If it's something within our control. And depending on that, we use that information to determine, is it something that institutionally we need to make some adjustments to because it's actually impacting our students' ability to return for their second year? Or is it something from the home base and it's something completely outside of our control that we cannot really do anything about? It was going to happen no matter where that student wound up attending. So it is definitely retention, attrition. It's something that we all study. And as a result, many of our colleges have academic deans for each grade level because it is becoming something that is not just exclusive to freshman retention. It's now a sophomore retention. It's now a junior retention, and just making sure everyone's aware of it. And going back, because I also deal with transfer students, transferring is not the easy breezy thing everyone thinks it is. So I would really, really caution anyone going to this process saying, hey, I think it'll work out at this school, and if it doesn't, I'll just transfer. Please don't make that kind of assumption, because a business program is not a business program is not a business program from school to school to school. They're all going to be a little bit different. And you can't assume that if you made this transition from one college to the next, that you are still now on a 4-year graduation pathway. You have likely probably increased it by 1 or 2 semesters. So please be ever mindful. And that's, again, why we do things like this about fit. We really would like you to get it right the first time and go about it. If you're not willing to have those kind of constructive conversations as a high school senior, when that time comes, to be mindful of the fact that at some point you're going to have that conversation, and I'd like it to not be at a third college, because you keep kind of kicking the can down the road, not wanting to kind of investigate what's not working for you about a particular school. So that's why it's really important to be invested in this process now while you're in high school, to ensure that you'll get a really good fit, so that things like retention and what have you aren't going to be a factor for you because you went about it in the right way and found a really great college fit.
On the other end of that, I wanted to talk a little bit about a graduation rate and what goes into that number, because we're talking about kind of that retention, adding semesters in a year. So the graduation rate is something also to be, cognizant of. So the four-year graduation rate, yes. So what percentage of students are graduating within 4 years? Now this number will also include students that transfer. So if a student transfers, that dings against that number, or students who, for personal reasons. So it's not necessarily always, the college, has a 76% four-year graduation rate. For students that will graduate from that school, it's usually quite a bit higher. But it's really important to think about that, because if you're talking to someone and it sounds all great and it sounds awesome, you're like, yeah, I'm going to get this 4-year degree, but it's going to take me 6 years, and that sounds like a lot of money. And I have student loans, and I graduated in 4 years, and they're already really high. I can't imagine having done 2 more years. So really think about that, right? And a lot of schools will say, yeah, we have all these great things, but only a third of our students graduate in 4 years. That's a red flag. That means that something institutionally going on there is not quite up to muster. So all of us schools here, because we are so focused on fit, we generally have better 4-year graduation rates. And because we are student-centered, we do have better 4-year graduation rates, because we're not just gonna watch you fail. We're gonna step in and someone's gonna notice something. They're gonna say, hey, that student's not doing great. Or hey, he's not showing up to class. And people notice that, and they wanna help. So they're gonna lift you up when you need to be lifted up, and bring you along so we can get you to where you wanna be.
And with finding that fit, I get really nervous if I hear a senior say they want to apply binding early decision to a school that's not their dream school. Because if they get in, they're going to go to that school, and what if they're not happy? And that's a really big thing to think about. And it's something that's on our seniors' minds, and it's causing a lot of stress. Okay, on a lighter note, some other quirky recommendations for how to gauge if a college is a good fit. Maybe talk about beyond the tour, what students and their families can be doing.
Well, I'm just going to offer one quick. Eat in the cafeteria. Eat lunch. In college, eating is an Olympic event. In high school, it's like, how quickly can you shove food in and hope to goodness you don't get indigestion? In college, it's, oh, when does the cafeteria open? Okay, 4:30, so what? It sounds like my grandparents would be joining me, but that's okay. You will be there from 4:30 until they close. And apparently you eat 12-course meals too, because you have, I'll have a little appetizer, this, a little that. It's a social engagement. And for a prospective family, it's a really great place. Again, not that you want to say be a fly on the wall when it's talking about food, but you want to just sit in that cafeteria, taste the food, because it's going to be there for 4 years. So picky eaters, start to get on board with that. But second to that, watch the students interact with each other. See that engagement. See, most of us, our faculty members, our staff members eat in the cafeteria. You'll see a lot of things that you won't always see when you're out on tour, because it happens to what you pass by if you see that engagement. But cafeteria, definitely devote an hour to just try the food out, but sit and just observe. And that's a really great way to see things.
And I would suggest to sit in on a class if that is an offering. So see the kind of dynamic, the relationship that the students and the faculty have, whether it's lecture-based or it's more discussion-based. See what your day-to-day is going to be like in those classes. If you can choose maybe a faculty member of a discipline that's of interest to you, and maybe you can meet with that professor afterwards and just kind of talk about the research that they're doing, or the conferences that they go to, or the student clubs that they lead. And so sitting in on class and getting to know the faculty is a really great option.
So one really quick thing I would say, make sure you go into a visit with an open mind. I think it's really your mindset going into it is probably going to determine how that visit is going to go. If you walk into a school saying, this is my dream school, I know it's the right fit, you could maybe have an awful visit, but you'd walk out going, yeah, it's amazing. On the flip side of that, if you walk in going, this is going to be terrible, it's not the right fit for me, well, at the end of the day, you're probably still not going to think it's the right fit for you. So please, please, please just think beyond all the, what my friend said about their tour there. Think beyond the bumper stickers, the rankings. Walk into this as if you know nothing about it, and really just be a sponge, absorb, and then give yourself some time to really digest and say, how did that visit actually go? What do I think about that? Because again, I think a lot of people almost know what they think. They think they know it all before they even go and see these schools. So please, please, please approach the visits with an open mind.
And the last thing I will add was, I'm actually going to steal this. This was my mom's, her pro tips. She always told me for the future, as well as she always tell other parents, was number one, use a restroom as well. If the restroom is clean, everything is clean. If that place is dirty, run. Second, pick up a copy of either the literary journal or the student paper. Generally, it's not always a given deal, but you can get a pretty good kind of thumb on the beat of what's going on that campus if you read the student paper. You can find out what students are up to. You can find out what certain students are interested in. Just kind of gauge the cultural life that way. Another one that I will say, this is one that two-parter that I always think of is one, ask staff members, either in admissions or anywhere, ask us really basic questions that we usually wouldn't think to answer. The one that I like is kind of going off cafeteria. What do you like to eat? If someone goes, and then they also, the chicken sandwich, and give you that, they probably don't like have a thing that they like to eat, or maybe the food isn't that good and they're just trying to pawn it off as okay, because again, dining is super solid. But if someone can answer that question, say, oh, I like this thing, this part of the cafeteria is really good. I know for us, we do an amazing burrito bowl down in our like lower dining hall. It's great, you can get some chips, guac, it's fantastic. But so being able to have that kind of knowledge of the school will also tell you a little bit about what's going on. Certainly just stop a student. Find a student, say, hey, I won't endorse it, but if you want to, you can trick and be like, I'm lost. While I'm looking for directions, let me ask you 5 other things. And if a student is, able to go through and just tell you quick things, one that shows that the campus is generally outgoing and friendly, and 2 that they're going to be able to give you all that information. And if you do ask a student like, hey, excuse me, and they go, leave me alone. Maybe not the most warm and welcoming community to be a part of. So definitely, those are some things to help as well with kind of determining fit beyond a tour.
I'm not usually one to advocate being picky and petty, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So with all of these things, be picky. If it's not something you like, it's not something you like. Even if it's something as small as I worked with a student and we visited a school and she said, there's too many stairs. I don't want all these stairs, right? That's fine. That's totally okay. If you can't see yourself walking up all those stairs every day, you're probably not going to be happy about it, right? So it can seem small and insignificant, but if it bugs you that much, then that's totally okay to, not like something because of that.
Yeah, I know parents are going to have a hard time with that one. I was with a family this morning and they swore their child hated every school where it was raining when they visited. So have an open mind, but also really listen to your gut, because you're not going to really fall in love with the school you start by not liking. So I think that's good advice. I promise in February we're going to talk about the application, but in the meantime, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are going to be choosing classes for next year in January and February, March. So can you give a little advice to our students when they're thinking about their academic interests and how to proceed through high school? I think there's a rumor in this school that's not true, that you have to take every single most rigorous class offered in order to go to college. We'd love to hear from the experts.
First off, obviously if you're going to college, you're going to take a pretty standard college prep curriculum, but when it comes to advance, it's not necessarily the importance of how many AP or IB or gifted and talented or what have you. If it's a subject that you really have a strong interest in and you think you'll do well at that advanced level, then absolutely take it. If you're applying to a college that has very specialized programs, for example, if you were going to engineering school, then yeah, there's going to be a certain level of math that you have to have obtained as a senior in high school in order to get admitted to special programs such as that. So you do want to be mindful of that. But when it comes to we're looking to see your math, your science, your language, your English. We want to see that kind of continued progress, but that each year, achievement-wise, you've taken a little bit more rigorous course and your achievement kind of is continuing to carry on an upward trend or staying pretty consistent. But if you take really, really challenging courses and it's really not going well, that you can't always make the argument of, if I had taken less rigorous courses, I would have straight A's. Because you want to take the courses where even with a challenge, you enjoy it enough that you're going to rise to the occasion and you're going to do well. If you're someone who's just naturally gifted at pretty much anything you try, fantastic, then take the advanced courses in all of those disciplines. But otherwise, stick to the areas that you have a personal interest and strength in when it comes time to, should I take the more advanced or shouldn't I?
In terms of classes in general, I always encourage students to explore something you think or you're not quite sure you like. So at St. John's, our students are required to do music courses, and they're also required to learn ancient Greek. So those are some of the things that our students are like, I don't know how I feel about that sometimes, right? But a lot of the times, those things that you are a little bit unsure about or a little bit afraid of might be the things that you end up enjoying the most. And you might learn something about yourself in the process. So while maybe don't take AP chemistry if you've never really enjoyed chemistry, maybe take, another chemistry class, or maybe take something that you maybe wouldn't otherwise do. Because it's about exploring. It's about learning more about what you do like and what you don't like. And I think we focus so much on take things that you like and focus on what you like. But it helps you to figure out what you like when you know what you don't like at the same time.
And then one final to kind of add on to what's been said right now. With rigor, the best way we can think about rigor is how good of a predictor is this GPA of your GPA at our institution? The more rigorous GPA, generally we say, okay, that means they're going to be a better fit for our institution. But let's say you're a student and you're super interested in theater, and we see you've taken AP chemistry, AP physics, AP psychology, all these things, and all the while you're saying, I'm super set on theater. Well, now we're realizing that those APs, while they definitely show a lot of academic success, they're not as well like a perfect example, or they don't translate perfectly over to a theater curriculum. Could you have taken more art classes in your high school? Could you have taken Art 1, Art 2, Art 3, AP Art, increasing that rigor while also demonstrating that interest? A student who just takes rigorous courses for the sake of rigor while ignoring what their interests are is like, it's trying to measure weight with a thermometer. You're not using a proper instrument. You're getting an improper reading, and that leads to some really interesting conversations when you meet with us. We're saying all these courses super science because I think it looks really good on a transcript, but I really just want to major in theater or art. Do what you're interested in, but take those rigorous courses in those areas. The combination of those two components, pushing yourself while pushing yourself in the area that you want to continue doing that at our institution, that's the key to success.
I personally think am I on? Kind of? Yes, okay. I personally think this is probably one of the hardest questions to answer because all of you in this room might be looking at all different schools. And I will be very transparent. If we were up here and we represented Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Columbia, we would be saying something a little bit different. So my first suggestion is when you start to figure out where you might fit, talk to the admissions rep about your transcript, especially if you're a sophomore or junior, that you can plan for it. At my institution, it's a little bit different in that we look at what McLean offers, and we would like you to take some of the rigorous classes. We look for a very well-rounded student. We believe that you can change your mind. When you come to our school, you may want something now, but you may change your mind. If you're well-rounded, you can go in a lot of different areas. On the flip side of that, though, and this is where it gets difficult, if you are a student that really would excel taking standard level classes, that's what you should do. If you're a student, though, that would excel taking AP, but you know you can get straight A's with standard level, that's not a good path. You really need, if you're a student that could excel in some of the advanced classes, take the advanced classes to challenge yourself. Anybody else want to add?
And listen to your school counselor.
Yeah, that was my next thing, yes.
They won't steer you wrong. Well, I'd love just some parting words of advice before we close for the evening. Any final words of encouragement? If everybody could take a collective deep breath, that it's all going to be okay. Whoever would like to start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe the thing that I would wrap up with would be, don't be afraid to reach out. The favorite thing that, for me at least, is working with you as a student or a parent or as a family. I love working with students. So reading the applications, yeah, we do it, we tolerated it, but I love coming out and working with you because if we're the right fit, great. If we're not, that's okay too, but we'd still love to help you figure this out. So call, text, email, come to college fairs, visits, whatever it may be, we're here to help.
Absolutely agree. I would also suggest, because there are a lot of parents in the room, let your child speak. Let your son or daughter speak when they're meeting with admissions counselors. I know that as a parent myself, I know that's not always easy, but if your child may have some, challenges in coming up with the right questions to ask, that's what the drive to the college visit's for. Talk about what questions are good, what's important to them, like what I said before about their needs and their interests. Talk about those and come up with some questions, but then let your son or daughter ask those questions. I know it's challenging, but when we interview students on campus, a lot of the times the parents are speaking up for the student, and we want the student to take a really good approach to this and take ownership over it, and it to be a conversation, but really student-driven.
I'd like you to remember when you do go to the schools and you're sitting down with admissions rep and you hear the word interview, it's very much twofold. We are talking to the students and trying to get an idea if we're a good fit, if we offer the academics they're looking for, and if maybe we think that you'll be a good community member for our college. But the other half of it is we really want to be a resource. It's exactly what's said. My favorite times when I sit down with a student isn't that they're just talking about what they've done, but they're talking about what they want to do and what they're afraid of and what they, the perception that they have of college. And we start just talking about life. That can be very, very interesting. So, to paraphrase, when you go to these interviews, yes, be ready to talk a little bit about yourself, but be ready to be a bit vulnerable and ask the questions too. That'll help you decide if the school you're visiting is a good fit for you.
Awesome. So in part of my closing advice, to a quick story, I was coming off a really bad day of travel. It was a lot of driving, a lot of traffic. And I called my dad and I was like, you've been working for so long. What's your tip for just getting through the hard days? And he said, well, answer me this. Why did you take your job as an admissions counselor? And I started listing off all these facts. I said, well, it's so rewarding. I work with all these students and I get to see the change. And, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, stop yourself. You took the job because you like it. That's the most simple answer. It's the most straightforward answer. Because you like it, because you enjoy it. You can rattle off all other kinds of reasons of this is the major that I want, this is the college that I want, and blah, 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 blah. You do it because you like it. And at the end of the day, if you don't like what you're doing, it isn't the right fit. Find that thing that you're passionate about. Find the thing that you're interested in. And this folds into the next piece of advice is don't ever think that you fall into one of the two Bs, bragging or boring. Don't ever think that when you talk about yourself on an application or when you talk to us, you're like, oh, I'm talking about myself too much. This is bragging. This is the time to talk about how cool you are, which then ties into the fact is you are cool. You have done something or you have had some experience. You have a story to tell that we want to hear. That's why we like our jobs, is because we like meeting with you and hearing about the cool things that you've done. You don't need to have cured the common cold or solved like world peace or anything like that. You can just be, I tore my ACL my junior year, and then I got back out there my senior year. Everyone on this table has heard that story a bunch of times. We've also heard a bunch of times where that story was really cool. So don't ever think that you're bragging. Don't ever think that you're boring, and do what you like.
That's awesome. No, I honestly, I have learned a lot from working with students. So students think that they can't teach us things. That's wrong. If you can teach a PhD something, which happens quite frequently, especially at our institutions, you can teach us something. And when you teach us something, that makes us think you're even cooler. So I'll end with something that we started with in the beginning. Most colleges accept more students than they deny. So I feel pretty confident in saying that whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, if there's any seniors that were shy earlier, you will get into college. That is a fact that I feel very comfortable saying right now. So keep that fact in mind, and I think it makes this whole process a little bit less stressful.
And I'll do two things. One, when you get to your senior year, college search conversations in a household once a week, not every night. This cannot be something that people fear Taco Tuesday because, oh great, they're gonna cordon me off and we're gonna have a chat about the college search again and again and again. Once a week, check your emails. Students, sorry, we're archaic in that we use emails. So please start checking your email. That means mom and dad, if you compose an email and sign your child's name, we know it. It sounds different. At some point, there needs to be some level of ownership in this process, but not right now. But when you get to that senior year, but make it a once a week so it doesn't become this giant cloud over everyone's, oh, great, we're going to talk about the college search, we're going to talk about the college search. So please just put it into perspective. You should enjoy your senior year of high school. We will all tell you, are you enjoying your senior year? It's last time with your friends, last time with your teachers, last time in this building that maybe you think you're sick of by the time you're a senior. But these are nostalgic moments that you really will appreciate having when you go to college. And it shouldn't be, oh, my senior year was about getting into college, because then you've kind of missed the boat of what we've been talking about. And my one other little piece of advice when it comes to SATs and ACTs, for some of us, we are test optional, but for the places that do, statistically, it has never been proven that after 3 times of taking the SAT or ACT, you will grow your score substantially. I had a father push back on me. My son took it 7 times and he grew every time. How many points? 10 points. 10 points is not statistically significant for a college. It might be for you or for your child. It is not for us. So I have yet to see the data to substantiate. So when it comes to the SAT and ACT for the colleges that accept it, do not go more than 3 times. Let the madness end. It's a billion-dollar industry. It will survive without you taking the test 6 and 7 more times. So you can control your grades. You control the classes you take. You can control the daily life of your existence. You cannot control how you do on standardized testing. It is not a reflection of who you are, who you will be, or what greatness can be accomplished in life. So perspective, and just enjoy and have a nice time on the road trips that you guys get to hang out and hate each other's music and have really awkward conversations with your family. Those are some memories for you. So thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our panel.